Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Hello everyone and thank you very much for being on this video. So today we'll learn about the pronom relatif, a very important concept in French that you have to know if you're English and learning French because it's something that you don't have in your language. So that's why I want you to see this today because it's very important. When you're reading, talking, it's something that you will have every time and every day. So we won't take more time and we will begin right now. We are on the pronom relatif. So it's a very important concept, as I said just before, because you don't have this in English. So as you can see, I put the two values of this pronom relatif. So the first one and the most common case where we use the pronom relatif, it will be when you want to make a link between two sentences in French. In English, you can just say multiple sentences with multiple conjugated verb, one after the other, without any problem. But in French, we can't do that. In this case, we always need to put pronom relatif, and it's very important to have this in your mind. When you have two conjugated verb in a sentence, you will necessarily have at least one pronom relatif. You can't have zero pronom relatif in a complex sentence, which is a sentence with at least two conjugated verb. So we have a lot of pronom relatif, but for today we will see the simple ones, the pronom qui, que, and dont. So let's begin with the pronom qui, the qui pronoun. So as I was just there, le pronom qui replaces the subject of the verb in a sentence. So it's very important, and we'll see more exercises about this just after, but it's just as simple as that. In a sentence, when you use qui, it's to replace the subject, or to refer to the subject. So for example, if I say la femme qui parle est ma prof, in English, it will be the woman who is speaking is my teacher. So in English, you can remove this, and in French, we can also, because there, as I told you just before, we don't have a complex sentence. But in the case you have a complex sentence with at least two conjugated verb, and you want to make a link in this sentence, you have to put this pronoun. So we will see it with the second example, where in this case we have two conjugated verbs. So j'ai un ami qui habite à Paris. So in this sentence you have two conjugated verb, and when you have two conjugated verb and both of these verbs have the same subject, the same subject will do the action, I have a friend which lives in Paris. So it refers to the same subject. So qui is there to replace the subject. Qui refers to I, j'ai. So in this case, you have to put qui. And it's very important because in English we would put who because it refers to a person, but we have to be careful. It's not because I don't put an example with which that you can replaces qui by which. In French, we don't have this system with living and non-living things. It could have been a chair or anything. We don't mind in French about if it's it's living or non-living thing. So you have to be careful about that. So when we saw with the pronom qui, the pronom qui replaces the subject. The pronom que replaces the complément d'objet direct. Is what we call the direct object. So as I was just there, a direct object is a word that directly receives the action. So le film que j'ai vu est génial. So in this case, le film que j'ai vu est génial. Le film is the complement, the direct complement of this sentence. Why? Because as you can see, there, the complement is placed before the subject and the verb. And in this structure, you have to put que between the complement and the subject. And it's basically an example that is very interesting because in English, you're not necessarily obligated to put that. You could say, the movie I watch is great. So as you can see in French, we cannot put like a complement in front of a subject and a verb without this pronoun, without a pronoun. It's wrong in French, so you have to be very careful. So, le film que j'ai vu est génial. Que replaces the complement le film. Because if we were like asking the question, j'ai vu quoi? Like I watched what? The movie. And as you can see, the movie, like le film, is the direct complement of this sentence because as I wrote just there, it's the word that receives directly the action. So in this case, que is correct. You can put que because it replaces a complement and it's a direct complement that directly receives the action. If we were like moving like the sentence and putting the complement at the end, we could like remove que and we could just say j'ai vu un film génial. Like I saw a amazing movie. And in this case we would like keep the basic structure, subject, verb, complement, and we wouldn't have to put que in this case. So, and as you can see, you have also two conjugated verbs. So in this case, it's what we call a complex sentence. So that's why we have to put que. The second example, voici la robe que j'ai achetée. So it's the same example. Basically, like the structure is the same as the sentences before. We have the complement, which is like placed before the subject and the verb. So in this case you have to put this pronoun to make a link between the complement and the subject. We cannot like put the complement then the subject. Like it would be wrong to say voici la robe j'ai acheté. We cannot say that. Que refers to the complement and it allows the sentence to be correct because it's not natural to have the complement before the subject and the verb, like the classic structure. And it's something that I say a lot to my students is like subject, verb, complement, and it's something that you also see in English. Like most of the cases when we're like talking, reading, we always have this structure, subject, verb, complement. So that's why you have to be careful, and when you want to move a bit the order, put the complement before, it's okay, but in French you have to be careful and put the right pronom relatif in this case. And when it like refers to the complement, you have to put que. But, and it's the like little thing to be careful about, is that there is like another complement that has the same like purpose. Dont will also replace a complement. However, it will be a complement that is indirect. So there it's like a direct complement and there it will be like an indirect complement because the complement will be introduced by de. So let's take this example. C'est le livre dont je t'ai parlé. So in this case, we're not allowed to say c'est le livre que je t'ai parlé, because if we're like it's switching the order, because there is the same thing as there, we have like the complement before the subject and the verb, same thing, complement, subject, verb. If we're like switching the order and taking the basic order, the basic structure with like subject, verb, complement, we could say je t'ai parlé de ce livre, and then the sentence would be correct. After the verb, we could put the complement introduced by de, so in this case, it would be correct. If we take the previous example, le film que j'ai vu est génial, in this case, we couldn't say j'ai vu de ce film. Like, it's not correct to say that, because it's not like a verb where you can like introduce a complement by the preposition de. So in this case, and since it's not like possible, it's a verb where you have to put directly a complement after, so you have to put the pronoun que. In this case, parler, to talk, is a verb that allows a preposition after, so in this case it's correct to put the pronoun dont, because it introduces a complement that begins by the preposition de. Je t'ai parlé de ce livre, and then it's correct. So in this case, this complement, if we add like the complement there, je t'ai parlé de ce livre, and then we forget this part of the sentence, it would be correct to say that, and this complement could be like moved before, if we wanted to put it like before the subject and the verb, and we could put dont to make the link between the complement and the subject, because once again we're not allowed to put complement and subject like one after the other directly. We have to put a pronoun. So second example, it's the same thing. Voici l'homme dont la fille est médecin. It's the same thing. If we wanted like to take this complement and put it after, we could say la fille de cet homme est médecin. So as you can see, it's also correct to put this complement because it's like la fille de cet homme, l'homme dont la fille, like it's the same structure. The man whose daughter is a doctor is the same as saying the daughter of this man is a doctor. So as you can see, it's like the same, and in this case it's correct to also put a complement introduced by de. So that's why we can put this pronoun dont to replaces the complements. So to make a little like recap on everything we saw, qui replaces a subject, que replaces a direct object, and dont replaces an indirect object, a complement introduced by de. So now we will like just do a little other exercise. So I want you to put on like stop the video and try to see. So I put already the correction, but it's not like very the most important thing about that, because you already anyway have the translation in English, so you would be able to figure out. But I want you to try and take like a little moment to understand why, and maybe write on the paper like why we would put qui in the first one, que in the second one, and dont in the third one. Just take a minute, like okay, like what does a qui replaces, what's the value of qui, what's the value of que, etc., and trying to see like the purpose of like all these pronouns in each case. So I let you like 5 seconds for you to pause the video and stop, and then I will give you the explanations. So, in the first sentence, le chien qui aboie est gentil. So why do we have to put qui in this sentence? Because the one doing the action is the subject. Le subject, le chien. And in between, we don't have like nothing to make a link between the subject and the verb. So if we want to refer to the subject, we can put qui, because qui refers to the subject. So, le chien qui aboie est gentil. We don't have like any complement, anything in the sentence actually that could be like considered as a complement, as a direct like indirect complement, because gentil is not what we can call a complement since the verb is être. We can't have like grammatically what we call a complement in this sentence. So anyway, we're like obligated to use qui. The second example. Le film que tu as regardé est triste. So in this sentence, we have a complement and then the subject there, because the one which is like watching the movie is like you. So we have the subject there and then a complement there. So we know that to make a link, and as we saw just before, between the complement and the subject, we have to use either que or dont. So we have to find the right one. So let's make this little test with the complement like introduced by de after the verb. Are we able to say that? So tu as regardé de le film. Is it like okay to say tu as regardé de le film? No, it's not really okay to say that in French actually. We can't put like a preposition after the verb regarder, like to watch. So in this case, it's not correct to put like an indirect complement. So we can directly say tu as regardé quoi? Like you watch what? A movie, le film, un film. So in this sentence, you have a direct complement. So you have to put que. And the third example, l'homme dont je parle est mon voisin. So in this case, we'll do the same thing. After the verb, can we put de plus something? Can we put a preposition like an indirect complement after the verb? Like after this verb, actually, because we like wanted to make a link between this complement and this subject and verb. So we will just stop there. So can we say je parle de cet homme? Je parle de cet homme. Je parle de mon voisin. Je parle de cet homme qui est mon voisin. So it's correct to say that. You can replace this complement by de plus something, like of plus something. So we can put dont. So there is correct also, and we can put this complement. So for now, I also give you like this little exercise. I hope this like video will be helpful for you. You can try to do this exercise and try to send me on the comments your responses, and I will be like very very happy to correct them. So I hope this video like has been very very helpful for you. It's a concept very very important. So if you have like any questions, don't hesitate to send me a message, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.